Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Jay here, and I'd like to welcome you back to our Nordcraft 101 series. Today, we're going to be tackling attributes. Now, in the last video, we already kind of messed with attributes when we called in Xano to then pass this data here to these cards to showcase these numbers, as well as this rate of change over here. So we're going to be continuing from that point. So if you want to go along with us, go ahead and watch the video. The link will be up there in the top right corner of the screen. Watch that video, build everything, come back here if you'd like to follow along. So attributes can change how a component looks as well as it functions. So in today's video, we're going to look at a few examples, like we're going to be adding a theme, we're going to be showing things based on values, so on and so forth. So let's just hop right into this. And let's start with our first one being theme. So say for these cards, I want to have some sort of dark theme variant. So what I can do is I can come over here to the card stats and I can then go to this card base because this card base is what actually provides the base styling for this card. So that's what's currently providing the padding here as well as the text color. So I'm going to open my card base. I'm going to add an attribute and let's call it theme. And for the test value, I'm going to do dark. So now on that div, let's go ahead and go to attributes. Let's go to classes. Let's create a dark class. And I want this class to be shown if theme equals dark. Right? Then we can come over to the styling for that div. I just pressed S on my keyboard, go here to style, go to classes, go to dark, and then we can now style it however we want. Like say I want this background color to be gray 900, and I want the text color to be this gray, say 500. Now, if I go back, oops, I went too far, to my card stats, and I create another attribute at that level, let's again call it theme, and let's set the test value to dark. I then just want to come here to the card base in that attributes and just link the two themes together, just like so. And now you see we have a dark variant of the card. As simple as that. So now say we want to use that theme. All we have to do here is come over here to the theme and attributes and add in dark. And now we have those dark cards. So continuing from that, let's say we also want to add a image. All I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a image like so. Let's do some styling to it. I'm going to set the width to 100% and set it to cover. You know what? Let's also add 1 rem of radius there just to get it rounded. So now let's say we want to have an image only show if we pass in an image, right? So let's create a new attribute. Let's call it image. And I have this nice little cat picture here. I'm going to copy the link for, and I'm going to put that as my test value, right? Now in that image, I'm going to go to attributes, go to source, and I'm going to bind it to that image attribute that we created. So now let's see what happens. Sorry, now let's see how this looks outside the component. So we can see here that even if I didn't provide a value for image, it's still trying to show image here, right? What we can do is back here in card stats, we can say for the image that we want to show and hide it if image. And if we want, we can just add Boolean right here. So if we read what Boolean does, is it's going to convert the value to a Boolean. True and null, sorry, false and null will return false, and anything else will return true. So that means if image has any value that isn't false or null, it will then be true, meaning our image will then show. So if we go back here, we'll now see that the image isn't showing because it is set to null. Now, if I put anything here, any value besides null or false, like say A, it would then trigger that image, right? So I can now just put in the image here, and you can see that it works. And if I remove it and I set it to null, it then hides, right? Cool, that's pretty cool. So now what if we also want to create defaults for something? Say I want to create another attribute that will show and hide this rate of change stat here, but by default, I want it to be shown. So let's see how we might deal with that. So open up the stat card and let's add a new one. I'm going to call it show ROC for rate of change. Let's set this currently to false. Then let's come over here to the div that contains the rate of change. We'll do show and hide, and we will do show ROC. Now, there's going to be a few problems with this. If we go back here to the home page, we can see that by default, it is not showing because show ROC is set to null. So what we can do here is you might think to try to figure this out, like we can go if show ROC is not equal to null, if I need to copy this and put that there instead. If it's not equal to null, then we want to use whatever values in there. Otherwise, we want to use true. So then we go back here. We'll see that it's still not showing, even though show ROC is set to null. We can actually test this if we actually go into the stat card and I set ROC to null, that it does show here, but for some reason it doesn't show out here. Now, I'm not really sure why that is, but I know that there is a fix for that. So let's actually create a formula here, and I got this from the Spark team when they created Spark 1 and Spark Core, is we'll create a formula here that's called has value, and we'll convert it to custom code here, and we're going to pass in an argument. Let's just call it value or something like that, and we can just set that to unknown. Then we can destructure value here. So now we can just return if value is not equal to undefined and value is not equal to null. Okay, now let's go back to our stat card. Let's go back to this show and hide. And instead of this not equal, let's change it to has value. So now, if we go back now, oops, I meant to the home page, not to the formula. We can see that it is now showing default true. So now if it has any value besides false, it will show. And let me set this back. And that's just a very quick lesson on attributes. Now you can expand this as far as you want. You can do pretty much anything you really want with attributes to have it affect components. But that is a brief overview. And if you'd like to learn more, I would really appreciate it if you leave a like, leave a comment on what else you'd like to learn, and subscribe to this channel, as we are now actually hit 50 subscribers. Thank you so much for that, actually. We now hit 50 subscribers. We are now going to aim for 100. So support the channel, subscribe, and ladies and gentlemen, happy building.